I'm divorcing that parasite who can't even do housework. And I'm demanding $60,000 in compensation. I thought I was the only one who believed we had a happy marriage after meeting Niall at a local event. Niall had an affair with a new female employee at his workplace, and when I was hospitalized, he didn't even check on me. Even when I was in the hospital with the severe injury of having both legs amputated, I felt desperately lonely. During that time, I can't believe he was carrying on with his mistress. Moreover, when I think about how he could say such horrible things with a straight face, I feel utterly helpless. I decided to quietly step aside. And just when I was trying to focus on my main business, an opportunity for revenge presented itself. His carefree time with his mistress won't last long. He'd better be prepared. People who can hurt others without remorse deserve appropriate consequences. I'm Blair, turning 35 this year. After graduating from college, I've been working as a part-time employee at an office while helping with the family business. When I first started working part-time right after college graduation, some people gave me skeptical looks, but I've gotten used to those reactions now. There's no need to explain that I work this way because of my parents' advice to gain experience in other jobs while learning the family business. Some people say, "You're young, you should work as a full-time employee," but everyone has their own circumstances, and I wish they'd mind their own business. Recently, I've become more accustomed to the family business and have been entrusted with most of the work. Eventually, I'll need to be able to handle the business on my own, so I need to train hard now. I met my husband Niall at a local business event. My part-time workplace asked me to help with the event. Being someone who can't refuse when asked, I ended up participating in this unfamiliar event. Though I was there for work, I met Niall, who was working at the neighboring booth. It's rare to see a woman participating in this event. Oh, really? This is my first time. Are there usually not many? Very few, so it caught my attention. I participate in this event every year, so please don't hesitate to ask if you have any questions. At first, it was just polite conversation, but as we talked during breaks, he became someone I found intriguing. It didn't take long for us to exchange contact information and start regularly communicating. Though we were an odd pair, outgoing Niall who could talk to anyone and shy me, we couldn't have been more excited when discussing our shared interest in manga. As we visited various manga-related locations and museums, we became more aware of each other and started dating. After dating for a while, on our second Christmas Eve, while walking through the lit-up streets, Niall suddenly stopped. "I've been interested in you since we first met at that event. Will you marry me?" "I'd be happy to, if you'll have me." And so, Niall and I got married. Married life was pure happiness. Though work could be challenging, I had someone I loved to come home to. I loved those peaceful moments at the end of the day when we could talk about various things. However, I never imagined that such happy daily life would start unraveling from a small loose thread. Continued in next part. About 6 months after our marriage, Niall came home with flowers one day. "Welcome home. What are these flowers for?" "Got them from someone at work. They said to display them at home." "Do we even have a vase?" "Come on, get it together." You're ruining the beauty of these lovely flowers. Saying this, Niall went into the bedroom. The flowers he brought home were yellow roses. I thought it was unusual to give flowers for no special occasion, especially yellow roses, and decided to put them in a jar we had at home after he left. The next day, Niall came home with a small box. The woman who gave me the flowers yesterday also gave this as a wedding gift. What could it be? A vase? The small box handed to me was labeled as a vase. It is a vase. Maybe she was thoughtful since we don't have one at home. I put yesterday's yellow roses in a jar we had and displayed them in the entrance. Ah, thanks. I noticed Niall's slightly panicked expression. The flowers were already displayed. Besides, why would someone give us a wedding gift when we'd been married for 6 months? Yellow roses aren't commonly seen in shops. It seemed too perfect to be just a coincidence. A bit concerned, I looked it up and found that yellow roses symbolize "please break up." I decided to convince myself it was just a coincidence. People don't pay attention to flower meanings these days, it must be just a coincidence. The flowers aren't to blame. I should just properly display what we received. Thinking it would be rude not to use the gifted vase, I took it out of the box and removed the cushioning material. It was a perfectly ordinary small vase. As I tried to take it out of the box, I suddenly felt pain. Ouch. When I pulled my hand back, there was a crack in the glass. The crack seemed unnatural, despite being carefully wrapped in cushioning material. Having a bad feeling about this, I decided to ask Niall. Hey, about the vase we received, did you drop it or anything before bringing it home? Of course not. I wouldn't handle a gift so carelessly. From his expression and behavior, I was sure he wasn't lying. In fact, when he handed it to me, he did so very carefully, as if it contained something precious. Really? But it seems to be cracked. Oh, right. I need to water the flowers. Don't avoid the subject. What kind of person gave you this present? Niall scratched his head in annoyance as he answered. She's a new female employee in administration. Why are you so concerned about this? Well, I'm just. Then it's none of your business what gifts I receive, right? Are you going to interfere with everything? From that day on, Niall's tone became much harsher. Every time he opened his mouth, it was full of sarcasm that made me feel sick. Whenever something happened, he would speak to me in an accusatory tone, so I lived constantly on edge, trying not to be blamed. One day, when Niall was drinking at home and in an unusually good mood, I decided to take a chance and ask him. Hey, I'd like to send a return gift for the roses and vase from the other day. What do you think would be good? If you don't mind, I could pick something. No, don't do anything unnecessary. It's a gift I received, so it would be rude if I didn't choose the return gift myself. But I'm telling you not to butt in. You're so dense. The flower meaning of a breakup, Niall's attitude, his suspicious refusal to let me choose a return gift. Maybe it was woman's intuition. I decided to secretly hire a detective to investigate. Thanks to the detective being extremely competent, the investigation results quickly arrived in my hands. Looking at the results, I was unsure what to do. The feelings of still loving Niall and uncertainty about whether I could trust him going forward. And above all, facing the truth so soon after marriage left me paralyzed. While entangled in these problems, I decided to watch and think for a while. I thought I didn't need to act immediately on these investigation results. I could keep them as a trump card if needed. Believing it might just be a temporary lapse in judgment, I returned to my daily life with Niall. Whether that was right or wrong, I didn't know. Continued in next part. One day, my boss at work asked me to get some documents from the warehouse. The old documents were supposed to be in the back of the warehouse. While searching for the requested documents in the dark warehouse, I caught my foot on a stepladder. Unfortunately, I got caught on stacked documents and containers, which came crashing down with tremendous force. Unable to escape, I ended up buried under a mass of documents and containers. I was apparently discovered by someone from another department and taken to the hospital. I had lost consciousness after being buried under the containers and had no memory of it. Before I could even feel relieved about regaining consciousness, the doctor gave me devastating news. Apparently, the way the containers had fallen was particularly unfortunate, and I would need both legs amputated. Having just regained consciousness, I couldn't accept this reality and could only lie in my hospital room. What could I do without both legs? And above all, I was worried about Niall. We were newlyweds of only 6 months, and things were still tense after the incident with the roses and vase. We'd never had any major troubles since getting married, so it weighed on my mind. During my hospitalization, people from work took turns visiting me. I felt terrible for causing them worry while they were busy with work. Seeing how much my workplace colleagues cared made me determined to recover enough to be discharged as soon as possible. Between rehabilitation sessions, I tried contacting Niall several times, but he never answered his calls. I was worried about whether he was eating properly while I was away, so I sent messages too, but days passed without him even reading them. My workplace had apparently contacted my family right after the accident, so Niall must have known I was hospitalized from an accident. Though I was truly grateful for my workplace colleagues' visits, there were times when I felt lonely and wanted Niall by my side. I never knew it could be so painful to have someone not there when you need them. However, I couldn't keep dwelling on such weaknesses. Normal daily life would return after discharge, so I had to focus on rehabilitation to function with prosthetic legs. In the end, there was no contact from Niall until the day before my discharge. When I finally informed him about my upcoming discharge, he sent back just a one-word message, "Okay." I could only stare at the screen. In the end, a particularly close colleague from work came to pick me up when I was discharged. Having been hospitalized for so long, returning to normal life was more challenging than I'd expected. Working with unfamiliar prosthetic legs was physically demanding. Fortunately, my work was desk work, so the accident didn't prevent me from working, but it was still challenging nonetheless. What concerned me most was that I hadn't seen Niall even after being discharged. Since he had at least sent a message the day before my discharge, he must have known I was being discharged. The discharge was on a weekday, so maybe he had work he absolutely couldn't miss. However, what could explain not seeing him at home for days after discharge? Was he coming home late after I fell asleep and leaving before I woke up? However, there were no signs of anyone else having been in the house. There had been times before when Niall's work kept him late, but not seeing him for days made me anxious. While sitting in the living room looking at my phone and hoping he hadn't gotten into an accident or something strange, I heard the door open. When I turned around, Niall was standing at the door. He was holding a large Boston bag, and though he showed signs of noticing me, he immediately tried to leave the room. Wait a minute. Where have you been all this time? Shut up. It's none of your business. How can it not be my business? You haven't been in contact at all and haven't come home for days. Of course I'd be worried. That's what's annoying about you. He shouted while throwing the Boston bag he was holding onto the floor. Nothing good ever comes from being with you. Always meddling in everything. What do you mean by meddling? I'm busy with work, and you go and get injured. Your company people told me to go to the hospital, but that's none of their business. Thanks to that, I lost a business deal that was almost finalized. It was a $100,000 contract, but it's gone because you got injured. What are you going to do about it? How could my injury cause his work contract to fall through? As I was about to ask if such a thing was possible, Niall slammed the dining table nearby. Anyway, being with a jinx like you will bring misfortune to me too. Take responsibility and divorce me. What? Why so suddenly? Without answering my question, Niall took out a piece of paper from the Boston bag and thrust it in front of me. I'm divorcing this parasite who can't even do housework. And I'm demanding $60,000 in compensation. Divorce? Compensation? Of course. You caused me mental anguish and interfered with my work. Could such a thing be possible? Was this person speaking seriously with a straight face really the man I once loved? As I struggled to respond, he pressed closer. Your only answer is yes. I won't accept anything else. Yes. I had no energy left to cry, and could only sign the divorce papers Niall handed me. You submit the divorce papers. I'm too busy. I promptly submitted the divorce papers. Now I'm single. I don't have time to dwell on this. I packed my belongings and left the house. When leaving, I deliberately took my time getting ready. Maybe I was hoping Niall would reconsider one last time. However, my hopes were in vain as Niall clicked his tongue and glared at me. Just get out already. You don't belong here anymore. Niall grabbed my bag and threw it out onto the doorstep. I never expected our life together to end so quickly, but it can't be helped. But maybe this was for the best, since I hadn't fully grasped how self-centered Niall's personality was. In the end, Niall never really saw me at all. Those gazes I thought were looking at me must have been thinking of his mistress far away. Though I'm angry at myself for not noticing something so simple, getting angry won't turn back time. In this situation, I became determined to become someone who would make Niall regret his actions. Even though I lost both legs, I haven't lost my spirit. I won't let myself be defeated here. Time won't wait for me, so I'll just do my best with what I can do now. I decided to focus on work as usual. My main business is real estate management. Managing the real estate company inherited from my parents brings in about $9 million annually in rental income. At first, I knew nothing about real estate management. It was quite a long journey until the rental income reached $9 million annually. However, I was able to persevere because I knew Niall would be waiting at home. Niall probably never imagined I had an annual income of $9 million. Thinking about it calmly now, maybe it was good that I didn't tell Niall about the rental income. Given how Niall treated his wife so terribly, who knows what he might have done if he knew about my high income. Though I don't often appear for work in public, I sometimes show up for important jobs. That day too, I was heading out with several male employees. When I went to a meeting about renovating a large office building, I ended up seeing a face I didn't want to see. One of the parties involved was Niall. Niall acted as if he hadn't noticed me. It was immediately clear that he intended to completely ignore me. However, I couldn't help but be concerned about the female employee next to Niall. It wasn't because I was Niall's ex-wife, it went beyond that. I wanted to warn them that this was a workplace. Niall was mixed in among many employees, but his meaningful conversations with that woman next to him were noticeable. Since I could immediately tell they weren't just friendly coworkers, I decided to confront the situation head-on. "I'm so pleased to be working with you. Aren't you the one who gave me flowers recently?" The woman who had been talking intimately with Niall turned to me and smiled. "Did you enjoy the yellow roses?" I hadn't mentioned anything about yellow roses. Yellow roses are unusual. The fact that she mentioned them so casually confirmed she was the one. Though her smiling face had the radiance of a rose, her eyes seemed as murky as a swamp. She was terrifyingly impossible to truly understand what she was thinking or plotting. This wasn't just an affair. Deliberately sending gifts as a declaration of war to a married wife isn't normal. It was her who sent the yellow roses and cracked vase under the pretense of a wedding gift. Yes, I was very happy. Someone as thoughtful as you must have wonderful encounters in store. Thanks to that, Niall and I are getting married. As she said this, Karina showed off her left ring finger. It's pure love, we just met at slightly the wrong timing. For some reason, she was proudly showing off her marriage by theft. I don't understand why she would so proudly, almost boastfully, advertise such a thing. She must live with emotions I can't comprehend. Honestly, I felt too tired to say anything more. The goddess of love has shown what true love is through the power of our love. As she said this, Niall stood next to her proudly. Karina, who would spout such outlandish ideas every time she opened her mouth. I couldn't keep up with them. Just as I was thinking I wanted to finish work and leave, Karina spoke up. By the way, when is the person in charge coming? How dare they be late? What are they thinking? After bragging about her stolen marriage and going on about the power of love, she suddenly started acting like a capable businesswoman. I almost burst out laughing at her behavior. I told the pair, Karina, who was checking her watch irritably, and Niall, who was subtly placing his hand on her waist. That would be me. I'm in charge of this building and its renovation. The two looked at me with bewildered expressions. Niall in particular looked even more foolish than usual. Are you delusional as well? I know you're bitter about losing your husband, but lying in this situation is inappropriate. She had decided my statement was a lie, so this was her response. However, Niall suddenly had a realization and pointed at my face. That can't be right. You're just an office worker, aren't you? I was helping with the family business while doing office work. The family business being this, I didn't see any need to mention it before. But it's none of your concern anymore. Niall and Karina still looked unconvinced, but after checking with the surrounding employees and stakeholders, they finally seemed to accept it. Niall even tore up my business card into pieces after doing a double take when receiving it during our exchange of cards. It was so absurd I had to laugh. This can't be. I won't accept this. You were just a lowly part-timer, and I got sick of you. This must be a lie, right? It's not a lie. And by the way, this is the first time I've seen someone tear up a business card. In all my years of exchanging business cards through work, I've never seen such extremely rude behavior. The office building renovation meeting proceeded as planned after that, but Niall and Karina looked quite pale throughout. Well, no wonder. It must be shocking to learn that someone you'd been looking down on is actually the building owner. As for Niall, he kept trying to catch my eye during the meeting so much that it was distracting. What was this attitude about, after he was the one who initiated the divorce? After the meeting, there was talk of having a social gathering. Since we'd likely be working together for a while, it would be smoother if we knew each other a bit better. Though it was a small gathering, they were having trouble making reservations for that day. While others were working out the arrangements, Niall approached me and pushed something into my hand. When I felt something odd and looked, there was a small folded paper and a candy. Opening it, it read, "Shall we slip away together?" What was he misunderstanding? That kind of invitation to an ex-wife is inappropriate. I did a double take at him out of sheer disgust. Noticing this, Niall, for whatever reason, winked and made a finger gun gesture at me. Though one should properly stay until the end of work-related social gatherings, I absolutely couldn't stay with a group that included Niall. I briefly explained the situation to a subordinate and quietly slipped away from the gathering without participating. I ran through the crowd, praying Niall wouldn't notice. 5 days later, I had an unbelievable number of missed calls. Checking them, they were all from Niall. Looking closer, he had also left messages. The number of messages was 33. For someone who should be working, to make so many calls, he must be quite idle. Since I'd be troubled by more incoming calls, I decided to call him back. What is it? I'm busy, so all these calls are troublesome. Just tell me what you want quickly. Hey, why don't we start over? What are you saying? Has work driven you crazy? I'm being serious here. You're the only one for me. You made me realize how irreplaceable you are. Whether drunk on his own words or not, Niall's cringeworthy poetry continued. I wasn't in my right mind back then. You feel the same way, right? Don't lump me in with you. Besides, weren't you the one who brought up divorce? You ignored me when I was injured. No, I wasn't ignoring you. At this point, I decided to play my trump card. It was Karina, right? I had you investigated before. You were going to her house after work on weekdays. Even when I was hospitalized. Niall seemed to give up, admitting it surprisingly easily. Yes, I was going to Karina's house then. You were in the hospital, but I thought you'd be fine since you were being taken care of there. In the end, you were just busy being with Karina, right? I hear you married her, so it doesn't matter anymore. I was just being led astray by her. It's not too late. Let's start over. You must be having a difficult life now, right? Won't you struggle without me? Oh, I know, we can hire a housekeeper. I don't mind having other people in the house. As I was speechless with amazement, he continued talking as if he'd had a brilliant idea. I'm willing to throw away my job to support you. That's how committed I am in contacting you now. You've always been someone who put work first. For someone like you to say you'd throw away your job to devote yourself to me. Yes, if I can live with you again, work doesn't matter. I'm so happy. I hung up the phone there. Knowing Niall, he would surely act exactly as I imagined. I immediately headed to the city office after hanging up. What I submitted at the office was a marriage rejection notice. With this filed, Niall couldn't submit a marriage registration on his own. 2 days after going to the office, I got a call from Niall. Hey, they said something weird at the city office window. What do you mean by weird? Something about not accepting the papers. What? What are you trying to say? Be clear. I'm not free either. The marriage registration. I quit my job to be with you, everything was ready, but I got stopped right at the start. Though Niall was trying to play it off lightly, you could hear the panic in his voice. I decided to tell him the truth. They wouldn't accept it? Of course not. I'm appalled to hear you tried to submit a marriage registration without permission. Huh? You mean I can't marry you? What should I do? I quit my job. Quitting your job was your choice. I never told you to quit. That's the result of you rushing ahead on your own. I hung up after saying that and blocked his number. I should have done this sooner. Continued in next part. The peaceful days continued for a while, but they were shattered in an instant. A woman appeared before me. In disheveled clothes, with messy hair and sharp upturned eyes. This is all your fault. No one at work talks to me anymore. Niall's disappeared somewhere. What are you trying to do? Take responsibility. For a moment I didn't understand what was happening, but I recognized her voice as Karina's. There was no trace left of how she had proudly talked about the yellow roses. She was just an aggressive woman having a hysterical outburst. Though I knew I had nothing to fear from her, it wasn't pleasant seeing her up close screaming in a shrill voice. Is this about Niall? That's none of my business anymore, so excuse me. How can you say it's none of your business? Because of you, I lost my job, I have no money, you really are a jinx. With this one comment, I finally understood something. You two are very much alike. You're perfect for each other. What do you mean? Niall called me a jinx too. Like a parting shot when things didn't go his way. So what? You are a jinx. What's wrong with stating facts? Why don't you think about what's wrong yourself? I have no obligation to teach you, and you're being a nuisance. If you continue stalking me, I'll call the police. At that, Karina lunged at me in rage. The force almost dislodged my prosthetic leg, making it hard to keep my balance. I fell, and the personal alarm I always carried started blaring. People around us turned to look at the noise. As I was being manhandled by Karina, the police arrived. Apparently someone who witnessed the commotion had called them. I explained the situation to the police and had them check the security cameras. They confirmed I was not at fault, and to prevent this from happening again, a restraining order was issued against Karina. Why do I have to go through all this? Why? Perhaps because it was wrong from the start to have an affair with a married man and try to steal him? I'll be requesting compensation through my lawyer, so please respond accordingly. I decided to demand compensation from Karina because I couldn't let her get away with this without consequences. I wanted her to suffer as the person responsible for destroying my marriage with Niall and having the affair. I later heard through the grapevine that Niall had apparently rushed headlong into imagining a life of leisure after remarrying me, which is surprising. He had imagined divorcing Karina, remarrying me, and living an easy life off the rental income without working. It's astounding. As a result, he's apparently having considerable difficulty finding new employment. As for Karina, word spread around the office about her involvement with a married man, and she's in an extremely uncomfortable position. However, between the compensation she owes me and needing to work to survive, you could say this is the result of being blinded by immediate desires and money. Though it's not my concern, she's an adult and should have controlled her emotions and acted properly. My real estate management business is thriving, and I live off the rental income. Though living off rental income might sound nice, the various tasks required to maintain that income are actually quite challenging. Since all the work involves large sums of money, I'm always tense. Being constantly tense means no time to relax, and honestly, it's quite tough. Trying to change this lifestyle a bit, I decided to get a pet. I'd heard pets can be therapeutic, and I can now confirm this is true. When playing with my dog, I can forget about difficult things and work stress. I intend to fully appreciate and be grateful for the happiness and joy I have now, living each day mindfully.